So you dropped out of school because you kind of wanted to pursue this as like the main thing.
And then got my ass handed to me the
Yeah.
very first race. Georgia Theater, wound up high side and a guy crashed in front of me. It tossed me off the side of my bike up in the air. One of the first jobs we got, I worked with some people, like kind of some freelancers to start building websites together. And they paid us, $300 cash.
Yeah.
And we worked every day in the coffee shop until he finished it. I used to cut trees when I was younger, and he was older than me. And I'm like, hell, let's bid on it. I think we bid $75,000. We split it 3 ways. And so over the course of, I think it was 30 to 45 days, we cut all these trees, and it was like 225 trees roughly. Cleared out all the trees in 30 to 45 days and made $25,000 cash each. I used that money to build out the office. Moved out of the little house I was living in, and I slept on the futon in the back of the office.
Where does Spectruss come from? It's a cool name.
Spectruss, we kind of split the word, like a truss being like the strong beam in the roof line, so it kind of holds the whole house together. Hell, we've learned the hard way of things, that what not to do, hopefully, in the future. Welcome back to another podcast. This one, we're going to start with a theme on lucky number 13. 13 is normally not lucky, so hopefully that doesn't apply here. Lucky number 13 because it's 13 years in business. We opened the doors in 2012, January 2012, and I thought people might want to know some of the funny stories of kind of how we got into this. I wanted to pull you in, Zach, because you don't really know many of these stories, and so I thought maybe you asking me questions, that sort of stuff, I can help tell the story to other people. And it's nice to have a second person here. It kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But there are some fun things that happen along the way to get that start officially as a business, and some of the background stuff of my own personal background I thought people might enjoy hearing about. So, yeah, lucky number 13, the initial beginnings.
Yeah, no, I love it. So I'm started kind of helping you guys out, working with you about only a year or two ago. So it'll be kind of cool to see a little bit of the backstory, hear it from the man himself. So kick it right off. How'd you get started in marketing advertising? Why marketing advertising?
Right. Good question. Kind of by accident. To be honest, there's so many other industries that I could have picked that are way easier. I mean, this is one of the most volatile industries, in my opinion, in the entire world, because you can learn everything in a textbook in school and come out and not know anything about marketing advertising because it changes so much. And two, it's one of the most volatile industries in the world because when you're working with a business to help it grow, more often than not, they're under a ton of pressure because they're pushing growth, right? So they're spending money, hoping they're making money, and there's all kinds of things on their own infrastructure side or fulfillment side, operations that might fall apart. And so I picked a really challenging one kind of by accident. Initially, it was computer science that got me into this, and that was just because I was curious about how computers work. So I went to school at UTC for computer science. I love learning about programming. In fact, it's some of the only classes I actually did well in. Everything else I kind of just didn't give a shit about. It like bored me. And I like physics. I like computer science. Didn't really like the math part. Like when it got into all the abstract stuff, I didn't get. But computer science stuff, I kind of understood, especially once I learned about like object-oriented programming, understood like how to build like scalable programming systems. And not that I was amazing at it, but I understood it.
Yeah.
And started to enjoy it because it was something that, to be honest, was kind of challenging for a lot of people. And so I like that. Like I want to learn something that was challenging. So I went to school for computer science, but then I dropped out. Don't tell anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you drop out?
Like 2007. So technically I went for 4 years. I think I got a total of about 36 credit hours in 4 years, which I don't think is very good.
Okay. I was going to say, I'm not very familiar with how the credit, I don't know if that's good or not, but is that not standard?
I think most overachievers get that many credit hours in a semester, maybe.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. Maybe 2 semesters. For me, it was about 4 years. And then I did pay for it myself, so I wasn't like living off of mom and dad, just going to school, wasting time. But I think I took, among computer programming and physics and like some math stuff, it was like intro to ultimate frisbee, beginning kayaking. And
kind of fun.
Yeah, it was fun. I passed those courses, and then that was about it. But like English and psychology, I do like psychology, but like the 101, those big classrooms, I just didn't enjoy it. I got an offer to go race bicycles, and it was going to be like I was already racing bicycles, and I was racing pretty high level, and I guess I was 19, 20 at the time, and there's a Tour of Virginia that came along, and our team got a opportunity to go race in it, and I got invited to go race in the team at that race, and it was a big pro race, and that was my biggest pro race to go to, stage race, and and it was during I think it was during finals. Is when it was. And so I told my mom, I was like, "Hey, I'm dropping out of school." And I mean, I was paying for it anyway. It's not like she's,
Yeah.
But it's our biggest fight we'd ever gotten into because she was so adamant about me finishing school. And I was like, "I'm
Yeah.
not going to finish anyways. At this rate, I'll be done at like year 2040, maybe if I'm lucky." So I dropped out and went and raced Tour of Virginia,
Yeah.
and it was one of the worst bicycle races ever did. Like
Dang.
I trained so hard before it, and I had some of my best power numbers. I was on road bikes at the time, and Virginia, it was like all through around Natural Bridge in that area, and it's like huge mountain passes in there, and it was a brutal race, super fast. Largest pro teams in the whole country, some Euro teams were there, and I got my ass handed to me. I think I was dropped on day 2 of 5 or 6. It might have been a 7-day stage race. I can't remember now. It's so long ago.
Yeah. So you dropped out of school because you kind of wanted to pursue this as like the main thing,
As a
go
profession
racing.
to go racing, yeah. And then got my ass handed to me the
Yeah.
very first race. So I was like, what have I just done? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, not that I was great at school anyways, but it was like I just threw away like the computer science course I was going for that I was actually doing good in, and got my ass handed to me. Yeah. But went back and kept racing, and I think at that time I had all kinds of jobs. I was working in a bike shop. I was building bicycles for American Bicycle Group in Quintana Roo and Merlin, and I think valet parking from time to time, and ride my bike. During the winter months, I had 30 to 40 hours would be a big week spent on the bicycle pedaling. So there's a lot of trying to find jobs to fill in between there and go race as much as possible.
Nice. Well, at least you're in shape. Yeah.
I was skinny, man. So I'm like 6'3", 6'3.5", something like that. And at one point, actually, it was right before the Tour of Virginia. And this is one reason I did so bad. I weighed in at 149 pounds.
Okay. So that's light.
Yeah, it's like Skeletor. I mean, my biceps were the size of like my wrist. It's just one you can count on my ribs. I mean, it was, it looked like I'd been in the Hunger Games,
right,
and not doing well.
I mean, biking is very taxing on your body, so that's kind of impressive that you decided to drop out of school to go do it. Now, this sounds like I'm hating. I think it's just like it's funny because
hate away.
I just draw a blank. I'm cutting that part out.
Nah, don't do it. Let it run. It's
no,
all right.
Is this a good segue? Because I was gonna be like, okay, so you just got out of school, you went after really a dream at this point. It seems like it was your dream, and you faced a little bit of adversity, didn't go the way you wanted it to. So I think this is a good segue into how marketing, because I mean that's like you went from like a really fun, exciting sport to a very tech savvy and it could be very boring business, but you did it, and there was a little bit of passion behind it too. So,
yeah. So that's a good question. So really, it came down to, I kept racing, doing that. Had some good results. Like I was Tennessee State Pro Road Race Champion in 2008, I think it was. Had some decent wins in 2007 as well. Went to a lot of national, international stage races. Mainly racing on the road bike. I do some mountain bike racing here and there. So I was a Cat 1 road cyclist, racing for like a. We go to a lot of the pro races, but we technically weren't a pro team because you had to have a certain budget basically to be a pro team. I was a UCI pro mountain biker, but I didn't have enough time to really race mountain bikes. So most of the races I was doing were like, averaging about 5-day stage races usually. So a lot of omniums, which are 3 race weekends, and then some 5-day stage races. And 2008, I think it's when I won the pro Tennessee State Road Race Champion. 2006, I was SEC Division I overall mountain bike champion. So that's where the mountain biking came in. Raced for UTC and went and won the whole SEC Division I, and that put me as top 6 in the whole country. Went to nationals, collegiate nationals, and had a really good chance of winning the overall there, mainly because of the downhill background I had. I was better than most of the cross-country racers at downhill. So back then, especially, all the top cross-country racers were really good road bikers. And road biking was my weakest part at that point because all I've been doing was mountain biking as a kid and racing downhill and mountain cross. So downhill, but I got the flu on the way out there, and so I didn't do well at nationals. And long story short, got all the way to the housing market crash in 2007-08. So it was like the worst timing ever to be an up-and-coming under-23 cyclist who's trying to make a career out of it. And there's a lot of really good cyclists then, and I was racing against a lot of them. Like Brent Bookwalter was one guy I raced against in collegiate cycling. He came back and raced some, and he was under-23 time trial champion. He went on to race the Tour, and some of my former teammates like Nathan Brown, like they went on. I think he raced the Tour as well. But I was up against a lot of good talent. And then I had a really bad crash in 2008, landed on my head. I was in a neck brace for like 6 months, and I was trying to find a pro contract, couldn't find one. and found a lower level, Cat 1 racing team. I think I still raced about 45 or 50 races in 2009. And then Tour of Jamaica was the last race I did, and that was kind of like the one I retired on. Technically wasn't really high enough level pro to say I retired. And it sounds kind of pretentious, but
I mean, that sounds like a career to me. So
it was a good attempt. There's a lot of things I should have done better, but then I kind of had to find something to do.
Yeah.
And I was tired of getting hurt and doing all that stuff. Like I don't know what number CAT scan it was, but racing in the twilight, got a front row call up. If anyone that here is listening is a cyclist, a front row call up to Athens Twilight Criterium, which is like a televised big crit down in Athens, Georgia. And within halfway through it, like I was doing really well. And Criterium is like, especially if it's technical, and this race is at nighttime and it's through the street of Athens, Georgia. And all the college kids come out in the bars, and they have it's all fenced off, and there's beer spilling in the streets. I mean, it's crazy. And our average speed is usually around 32 to 35 miles per hour it's a 2-hour crit. And I got taken out about halfway through in front of the Georgia Theater, wound up high side, and a guy crashed in front of me. It tossed me off the side of my bike up in the air. Another CAT scan, knocked out, and I was like, man, I just got out of a neck brace. I don't know how many concussions I've had and how many broken bones. And
cow.
So I started building websites, and I'd already been building some websites to make some money here and there. So I started using the computer science part, and then started freelancing more. And oddly enough, one of the first jobs we got, I worked with some people, like kind of some freelancers, to start building websites together. And we worked at a coffee shop a lot, which is like what a lot of people in marketing advertising do.
Right.
Always at a damn coffee shop.
Powered by coffee.
Yeah, everyone does. We need it, right? Like, got to get cracked out on something. So first job we landed, and it was actually my first technical, we had no LLC or anything, but we called it Hub Design Group, built a website for it. And it was me and this guy named Matt Richardson, a super smart guy. And we built a website for this coffee shop called Toast, and it was over by UTC. And we were in there every day working or playing on the computer, whatever the hell we were doing. I remember we bid on it. We had no idea what to bid. Yeah. So I think we bid $750 for the website, and it was going to be like a full custom design, custom build. And I think at that time we were building it on an open source CMS called Concrete 5. And that was like one of the kind of competitors to WordPress that was just really gaining traction. Yeah. And $750, but we traded them, I think it was $450 of credit so we could eat and drink there for basically a couple of months. And then they paid us, $300 cash. Yeah. And we worked every day in the coffee shop until we finished it. And it turned out to be a good-looking website, and we did some other fun stuff with them. But that was our first website job. Yeah, $750.
Dang, that's pretty sick. I mean, like I said, we operate off coffee, so that's kind of a good deal.
Hey, that offer does.
I bet you're like, yes, please, thank you.
Yeah, that offer does not. If you're listening, the offer does not apply anymore. That quote.
Or it's got to be like a lot of coffee.
A lot. Yeah.
Our ownership in a coffee business
that I can resell. Yeah, something.
Yeah. So we're at you kind of get your roots here in marketing advertising. Is it a big world at this time? Because I know compared to now, marketing and advertising is way different. The internet is way different than it was back then. Software is way different. So take me into a little bit of the process of what got you to start rolling into maybe becoming Spectruss.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, the landscape then was way different. So in some ways, kind of caught it at a good time because social media is really starting to take off. Facebook's starting to take off. Instagram wasn't even really around then, I don't believe. I think it wasn't until 2012 or something. At this point, it's like 2009, 10, 11. So, opened the doors in 2012. During that time, I did some other, I had a little stint over in Europe, worked for Trek Travel and led tours in Europe, bicycle tours. So they needed people that were strong enough, good enough. So I picked up a lot of former pro cyclists or good cyclists and went over there, worked a summer with the Tour de France for Trek Travel, leading bike tours. And that was a super cool job and pissed off a lot of people trying to speak French and Spanish because I was so terrible at it. Great experience, though, and then worked for the North Face for 4 months. That was my only corporate job, and I was still kind of building websites here and there and tried that corporate gig, and that was the most money I ever made in my life. They gave me a truck, and, at the time it was a BlackBerry, and you get a BlackBerry, I was like, oh, this is highfalutin, and laptop and 401ks and full insurance. I'd never had insurance before, I was except for all my parents' insurance.
Right.
I didn't know what to do. And then I could really hurt myself, and it's covered, so... But quit after 4 months because the people I was surrounded by I just didn't enjoy. I had this boss, and she was a complete bitch, and I was like, I don't want to work for her. And you're all your life for so long. I would rather be around people I want to spend my life working with. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't soon after that more websites came across my path, and I'd been shooting a lot of photography too because I've always liked the visual arts,
Right.
and so I started shooting more like guidebooks for rock climbing and all this outdoor stuff. Being Chattanooga, all the outdoors are here, so photographed a lot for guidebooks, and then kind of got into video, and then I started building websites for friends and their businesses, and then like, well, they need photos and they might need videos and that sort of stuff, and so that kind of led to finally, I'm like, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to call it Silvey Development, for website development. And picked an office in North Chattanooga right by Aretha Frankenstein's. And the building's still there. It's a cool building, kind of like a shotgun, tall ceiling, about 800 square feet, something like that. And yeah, so I built that out, but I didn't have very much money at the time. And conveniently enough, a storm came through. I mean, it wasn't convenient for a lot of people, but big storm, a tornado. And a buddy had a property that was about 7.5, 8 acres in Stewart Heights, and he had like 200 and something trees. Tornado basically went right across his house and somehow didn't rip the house down. It was a really well built, sturdy, mid-century modern house. Had 6 trees fall on it and somehow didn't crush, like big trees. And so he was getting these quotes, and I was listening to him get all these quotes, and there was like 150, 190, $225,000, like for 3 quotes. And I'm just trying to guess at numbers. This was 15 years ago or 14 years ago. So, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, man, I've got a chainsaw. I'm handy with the chainsaw. Like, I'll give it a shot. And I talked to my buddy, and he's like, yeah, I used to cut trees when I was younger, and he was older than me. And I'm like, hell, let's bid on it. And so we bid on it and basically wound up 3 of us, including my buddy, the property owner. And then I put together a contract, like a legal contract, to remove any sort of risk and liability in case we chop off our legs or whatever. Got some stuff on the internet to help us write that. And his wife is actually ex-wife, wife at the time, was an attorney, and she looked at it. I was like, yeah, this is good. And so we bid on it. I think we bid $75,000. We split it 3 ways. And so over the course of, I think it was 30 to 45 days, we cut all these trees, and it was like 225 trees roughly. And one of the trees that we had to remove that were all ripped down by the tornado. If a tornado comes through and there's a lot of like elastic trees, like pine trees, they're very elastic, it twists them all. I never experienced that, but they are under such great load. And when they get in that cluster and they're all bound up, whenever you go to cut them, dude, it's like Russian roulette. Like sometimes like you try to look at it, but then sometimes this thing is so like just under pressure, it'll unload and swing. It was crazy times. But we basically did it for half the price of the cheapest quote. And our big thing is that we did a control burn. And so we burned all of them. We got industrial fans, and we burned all the wood on site in 3 burn pits, cleared out all the trees in 30 to 45 days, and made $25,000 cash each. And I used that money to build out the office. Moved out of the little house I was living in, and I slept on the futon in the back of the office. So like I bought a new computer, a new camera gear, a bunch of desks, painted the whole place, and lived on the futon for the first 6 months in the office.
So where's your happiness meter now compared to this corporate job that you had right before? Because this is the fun part about entrepreneurship. There's so much random stuff you're doing to make it work. But where were you on mental?
What's the old, like I've seen memes, whatever, or posters like entrepreneurs are only crazy people that would be so spiteful to work 80 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week for half the pay or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
I paraphrase that terribly, but
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
to be honest, the most fun part was probably cutting the trees. Like that was so much fun. Like my buddy brought his old Honda CR7 or whatever it was. What's it called? Trail 70 pit bike.
Yeah.
And we'd ride that in between the trails we cut to get to the trees, and we're snaking big giant trees. That was a ton of fun, to the point where I almost thought about like chasing storms and cutting trees. But I'm also like kind of wild enough to where I'd probably like be a peg leg by now, and like be missing maybe both my legs by now.
Jeez, I don't know. I feel like you've gone through it and you're still in one piece. You might be a little bit invincible. We'll see.
Right,
You're still racing, so
still doing stupid shit.
I do have one thing. I think this would be a good way to end it on this, like the beginning of your story is the name Spectruss, because is that because you said Silvey LLC? Is that what you said it was before?
Silvey Development.
Silvey Development. Is it? Where does Spectruss come from? It's a cool name. I always liked Spectruss.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a story there, because it actually went from Silvey Development to then I had a business partner for a little while, because we were partners in another business, and I needed someone to help me run mine when I was building this house on Lookout. I still have, and shit hit the fan there, and so I had to be up there. And so I partnered with Hugh Huffaker for a little bit, and changed the name of my business to Silvey Huffaker Creative. And then we parted ways after about a year and a half, and then I rebranded it in 2015 January to Spectruss. And Spectruss just came from, we finally made up a word because we were tired of, I mean, you can look up like Pink Pony Creative Company, and there's going to be one, like there's so many of them. Even in 2015, there were so many of them, like, and all creative people just kind of pull names out of their ass, it seems like, and put agency behind it, and there it is. So we made up a word, and it was, I wanted to give some sort of story behind it, so it had to mean something. So, Spectruss, we kind of split the word, like a truss being like a strong beam in the roof line, so it kind of holds the whole house together. And then spectrum being like the wide array of light, a light spectrum. And so the idea would be like we'd have a wider range of strengths. So the full marketing, advertising, and marketing, because it takes more than just being good at websites or just being good at Google Ads or shooting video. Like ideal world, if a company's going to do marketing and advertising correctly, they need it all done, and it all needs to be tied together with a strategy and plan. And so that's where the word Spectruss came from.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's a fun story.
No, it helps me tell the story as opposed to just being like, I don't know, we put some letters together and make
random
noise
number. Yeah, no, 100%. That's pretty cool. It's always stuck out to me. Spectruss is, I like it. Has great branding. Obviously, you guys got great branding, so it's pretty cool. So that's the beginning part of Spectruss. I think we got to stay tuned for a little bit more. Where right before where you start maybe bringing on some help, building a team out together. Maybe even touch on COVID, because I know COVID was a big part of the business where things have changed.
Yeah, I think we can. I don't know. There's some fun times there and some wild times between like whenever I changed it from Silvey Development to Silvey Huffaker Creative, and then Justin Aragon became part of the team as creative director, and then he's still with us today. And there's a lot of wild times there we could talk about. Some like projects that went great.
Yeah.
Some projects that turned to complete shit. And we learned the hard way of like who not to work with or what not to work with. So I think those are fun stories to tell. And it's been long enough now that we could probably, be honest with it with ourselves, or me with myself. And people might want to hear it,
Right.
And hell, we've learned the hard way of things that what not to do, hopefully in the future.
No. Some of the best stories are when everything goes wrong. So
for some reason, I love to learn the hard way. I don't know why. Yes.
Cool. Well, then stay to be continued on that.
Yeah, we got to leave people hanging. They want more.
Give them a little tease.